Chris, can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes, I can, Jim.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening.
I'm gonna take 1 minute. I just got to reheat some food, so you won't see me.
Hi, Chris. Hi, Jim. Hi, Dave.
Hello.
How are you, Michael? Hey, David.
Nice brief yesterday, Chris.
Thank you.
How long you gonna let that thing grow?
It's still not completely bothering me, so I'm gonna keep it, I think, as long as we have to stay quarantined is my plan.
Just keep it forever.
We won't recognize you, Chris. Won't be able to see you.
I know.
Catherine, did you hear from your son? Hi.
Hey, Mike, thanks for
How are you?
asking. I just mailed him a package.
Oh, nice.
Yep, my mother baked cookies. And when grandma bakes cookies, you send them right away.
Mhm.
How long does it take for him to get
That
them?
way you can share them with everybody.
I know, he does share them. Jim, it depends. He's in Bahrain and mail all goes to an Air Force base, and whenever they send over, he could get them tomorrow, he could get them in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. Well, the cookies must have been wrapped really well.
We wrapped them well, and she made ginger snaps specifically because they travel well.
Uh,
Gotta remember, she's 97.
I'm sure he'll appreciate them.
He can't wait. He can't wait.
How long has she been there now? 6 months?
Since November. Yeah, coming up on 6 months.
Yeah.
We've got since we're not on yet.
Ah, there we go.
There we
Nice.
go.
There we go.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah. It's a lot of equipment.
Brings back memories.
It's more than he had to wear when he was walking through Wenham.
True. He doesn't say how often he's out at sea or anything, does he?
It's pretty much 2 weeks out and maybe a week or so in.
Oh, not bad. That's
Yeah,
pretty
we
good.
could tell by when he has internet and when he doesn't.
It's gonna get real hot, real quick out there.
Yeah, both weather and otherwise, I'm sure.
Well, let's just hope it's just weather.
Yeah, no, it's pretty temperamental out there.
Yep.
There's a lot going on that we don't hear about, as you know.
Yep.
So,
As long as he's safe.
exactly. So far, so good. He just asked for some Italian dressing to be sent. The things you miss, right?
Now, if he went to an Air Force dining facility, we'd have that. But he must be with the Coast Guard or some Navy, so
You know.
Hi, Dave.
People mind if I eat?
No.
Oh, maybe I'll do it.
That's sustenance, David.
That way you don't have to watch the food get shoveled into my mouth. Anyone not feeling stressed?
Not me.
Not overly.
I'm stressed all the time.
Oh,
I recommend IPA.
Yeah.
Wow, very good. Good.
Bourbon.
Or bourbon. Nice Manhattan. It's still cool enough. We're still in bourbon weather officially.
Yeah.
All right. Off to gallery view.
Looks like it's just Carrie's not on right now.
Carrie informed me she's got a conflict.
Okay.
Right. So we got David, Jim, Mike, and we're good. Anthony, cool. Welcome.
Hi, Anthony.
Chris, Jackie, Catherine, good evening. Harriet, thanks for joining. Good to see you as well. So we've got quorum, and we don't expect Carrie based on her conflict, so we can get started. I'll call the meeting to order at 5:34 for Wenham FinCom on April 29th. And I think, Catherine, I think I've listed everyone we've got, right? Are we good for in terms of roll call or attendees? Okay,
you are,
terrific.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So continuing with our weekly FinCom meetings to stay close to FY20 and FY21 implications of COVID-19 and the like. Chris, thanks for forwarding the agenda. There were a couple follow-up items from last week, which will probably serve to sort of comprise the bulk of the discussion, at least as a starting point. Both you and Jackie had sent some great information. So do you want to lead off, Chris, or?
I'm going to have Jackie lead off. So in case she has some other place to be, we'll let her go first.
Where would anyone else be?
I don't know.
Want to be or have
I'm
to
just
be?
joking. I was just trying to be funny and be polite. Jackie
That's
can
nice
lead
of
off
you.
and go first.
That's
I
very-
will go from
very
like one
courteous.
side of one side of my apartment, the daytime side of the apartment, to the nighttime
to
side.
the nighttime. Okay.
Yeah. But
Thanks for the
Chris.
information that you sent along, Jackie. Yep, I'll let you
Yeah.
walk us through it.
Happy to. So I hope folks were able to take a look at my memo. Chris had sent me an email last week with a couple items for this this meeting to follow up with the FinCom on. The first item being the FY20 and FY21 permitting revenues. As you know, we do see a pretty good profit, for lack of a better word, on our permitting revenue. It's something that we budget conservatively usually because we are never sure of where construction season will take us. But the last few fiscal years, between really easy winters and the subdivision at Dodges Row, the mixed use, the flexible development at Wenham Pines, and several new single family homes, and some renovations and additions, we've seen good years for 18 and 19, and 19 being particularly great with the opening up of the Dodges Row subdivision, which you can take a look at in the spreadsheet that I sent out last night. And that's still the case for FY20. So as of last week, we are $20,000 over our permitting revenue projections for the year. So permitting is now paid for itself and has started to very quickly help with the cash flow. If you take a look at my month-to-month breakdown that I sent, we actually had a very successful month of April despite the safety protocols that we've been following for both town hall and construction sites. So in that number, actually, as of this week, we have another $2,000 that came in through online permitting. So we will see. Oh yes, thank you, whoever is sharing.
There we go. I figured it out, Jackie.
I'm glad, Chris. You know, we're all hanging in there.
That's cool.
So you can see we actually had under FY 2020 actual to date for the month of April, it's listed as 13,000. But now with another $2,000 in online revenue, we'll be at $15,000 for the month of April alone on permit revenue, which is all cash that goes right into our bank account for the town. that I turn right over to Sherry in the treasurer's office. So permitting is doing well right now. I expect it to continue to do well through the end of the year. I will say I credit a lot of this to our new permitting software. It was a grant-funded transition, and it's much more expensive than the old software, but I think we're really seeing a return on that investment right now, in that I am still able to process a lot of permits from home or from town hall without having to interact with the public or create any physical distancing issues. So it's really wonderful because permitting has not skipped a beat in terms of collections and paperwork since the start of the crisis. And I think you can see that from the numbers. In terms of FY21, I'm not prepared at this time to reduce our revenue production. Chris and Anthony and I are looking at our revenues across the board for fiscal 21 based on what kind of economic changes we may see due to the virus. But I will say that as of right now, I'm not ready to reduce the permitting amount, because if you look at the bottom of the sheet that is being shared under for reference, you can see our FY20 budgeted amount was roughly $80,000, and we're already $20,000 over that. Our FY19 was roughly $74,000 budgeted, and we were $59,000 over that due to Dodges Row in particular. And then in FY18, we were $67,000 for our projected revenue, and we were $23,000 over. So in a bad year, that's a good number to be at. I would not want to raise it for being too optimistic. You're not sure, never being sure when, we're going to get a particularly bad winter. But I am not ready to reduce it for COVID-19 related purposes at this time.
Great. Thanks, Jackie. I've got a few questions, and I appreciate you
Sure.
putting the memo together and this great analysis. So first off, the first full fiscal year of the, I think we started in late FY18. Is that correct, for the joint permitting program?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So we are, this coming budget, FY21, will be our first year out of the 2-year pilot program. So it was
First year out of the 2-year pilot program.
Yeah,
Okay.
so 19 and 20 were the 2 pilot program years, and FY21 we're now like fully invested in the program.
Okay, but that's just from a formal policy commitment standpoint. It doesn't impact the numbers, right?
Correct.
The numbers are what they are regardless.
Yeah, particularly on the revenue side, the revenue really has no impact from the Hamilton split. It's just the cost of the inspectors and the inspectors' salaries and some of the expenses that we do see some savings on with Hamilton's contribution.
Got it. Cost
So
borne by Wenham,
sure.
reimbursed in part by Hamilton
Yeah.
for their usage. Yep. Yep.
Everything for revenue this is all Wenham revenue. I don't look at the Hamilton revenue, and this does not include the net assessment monies that we receive from Hamilton for their share of.
So
costs.
all the numbers on this are Wenham only. It's as though we didn't have a shared program for, which is great. That's how we should be thinking about it. So we don't need any adjustments. So you answered my question, I think, which is going to be as to why FY18 was blank on a month-by-month basis. Probably we didn't have the software or tracking in place to get the breakdown. Is that fair?
We do have those numbers. I just did not have enough time. I had to go and grab them and fetch them and from my turnovers that I do and from the SoftWrite postings. So I just have not had time to go back and do those numbers.
No worries. And I don't think it would materially change. What I was getting at is how reliable is the trend? And of course, we know from building and when the building season is, generally speaking, right? May and June are going to be the big pop. So I would say that I'm not really I don't view it as a huge positive or a surprise to the upside based on our budgeting in a very conservative manner from a revenue standpoint. We don't like to see costs exceed budget, but I mean, at the same time, we're budgeting, very low relative to actuals, I guess, from prior years.
I think we're definitely being conservative in our projections, and that's paying off right now for free cash purposes for FY18 and FY19, and now for FY20, it's going to pay off for the unexpected costs due to COVID, and it's paying off in terms of cash flow purposes for sure.
Yep, definitely. But we want to be careful with how much we plan on deliberately falling to free cash, right? In the grand scheme of things, we don't. That's not our intent. even though I agree it's having that beneficial impact at this point. And with May and June in particular, so I'm looking at overall, and so obviously plumbing, electrical, smaller pieces, right? And the big piece being kind of the building permitting. If we look at in 19, obviously the pop of, 25% of the overall revenue, more than that, more than a quarter of the revenue was in the month of May, right? So we expect to obviously get a lot more in this upcoming month as well, based on building seasonality.
Well, and Alex, I think to your point in terms of May last year, that was when the first slew of building permits was issued for Dodges Row. I think we had 5 that May alone.
Okay.
We also typically see a lot of Gordon College permitting going on in May, and we do get to charge them for fees for inspectional services, Board of Health projects. So I will say that I don't expect you to see the same May as you did last year. I think we saw a lot of Dodges Row kicking off last year in May. So I wouldn't be as optimistic with May as last year, but I would say that obviously for the overall year, we're definitely in the clear for our projections.
And then one last comment, and then I'll let other people kind of chime in with questions or comments. I think that the nature of these projects is based on, building activity is going to reflect, underlying economic activity and strength of the, local and national and global economy. I mean, people are going to put, big money into their houses that'll, other than just like slapping a coat of paint on it, right? For which, $500 and you don't get any permit revenue, when times are good. So they're decidedly not good now, and there's going to be a lag effect, right? You've got projects in flight, Mike's, mine, Dodges Row, other things that we can rely on. And even if it was, setting COVID aside, if you had any kind of more normal slowing of economic growth, decline in payrolls, markets, and so on, nothing like we've even seen, we would expect to see kind of a cyclical downtrend at some point in permitting. I don't know if that plays out over a 6-month time period, over a 1-year time period. We have limited kind of home starts in Wenham, but like to your point, Jackie, we've had a pop with these developments lately, which has been good. So as those wrap up, then it's a question of what's a steady state. Is it that people aren't undertaking big, 50, 100, 200,000 or whatever, multi-$100,000 projects, or is it, how does that play out? And I think we are going to see a decline. That said, I don't know if that's going to materialize during FY21, or if it'll be that the permitting, because of the nature of these projects, the planning and the time that takes place up front for builders, for homeowners, for contractors, for everyone to kind of get their, ducks in a row that can take months, if not years, to play out over long term. So I think we're going to see either a slowing rate of growth or a decline. But I don't disagree that, given our conservative nature of budgeting, that we would expect a decrease, that we could know what it would be for FY21 just yet.
I think that's all well taken, and I think that I have been honestly waiting for it to slow. We did not have our usual winter downturn this year that I typically see. Usually by January, February at the latest, we do see some break. But as you can see, even in February last year and this year, the planning for the summer and the lack of like a deep snow and deep cold has really kept things moving. And I think we're really only starting to see actual work slowing down now with some of the safety restrictions, but a lot of new construction is still proceeding under the governor's criteria for how they can proceed. So I think, construction will follow the economy. It's only a matter of time. But it's something that Steve Ozahowski, our resident assessor, and on the side has some works as an appraiser. He and I, communicate really frequently on that topic, because we know it's going to affect my, straightforward permitting dollars as well as his assessed value dollars. So it's definitely something we're thinking about. And I know Steve keeps a really close eye on the sales in the community and the sales in the wider region. So I think when we have updates that we start to see those downturns, we definitely will communicate it with the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen. But from the conversations I've had with Steve and from my observations so far, based on the numbers before you tonight, we're not there yet, which is good news for us for now.
Thanks. Any other from FinCom or Chris or Anthony? Anyone want to add or have questions for Jackie?
Just to clarify, so the budget for FY '20, that's the first time I've seen this chart, is 79,167 for the whole year, or is that just year to date?
So the 79,167 is what we budgeted for revenue for the
For the
year,
whole year?
for the whole year.
Oh, okay, that's terrific. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I understand. And we can't project May and June yet.
No, but you know, as soon as I start to have those numbers, I'd be happy to provide an update
Yeah,
maybe at the end of May and at the end of June respectively, to this chart that I can send and share with the FinCom so you can see those as we get them. You know, I think it's one of the few places we can definitely be optimistic about right now. And when that turn starts, we'll definitely notice it in the permitting fees before I think anything else, because those projects will grind to a halt, you know, from starting very quickly. But right now, you know, every contractor I talk with says, you know, they have a laundry list of people that they're waiting to get to, and that they like just want to keep up with the work that they can do safely right now.
Yeah.
So, you know, definitely trying to like keep people permitted and take advantage of this time where people are definitely sitting at home, staring at the wall and thinking, how can I change my kitchen tiles? There's definitely a lot of, you know, cabin fever permitting going on. So we're just responding to as much of it as possible so that we can have it prepped for them.
So that 20,712 could increase to X,
It could, yes.
whatever, you know, another 10 or 15,000.
It could, yeah. Whatever we see in May and June will just increase
Okay.
that 20,000.
So that goes right to the free cash, correct, Chris?
Yes. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, yeah, it could. Okay.
But Jim, just to add to that, I mean, you know, we budget 80 grand and that's 50 grand less than we received in 2019. Right. So on the basis of,
Oh, right.
right. And it's 10 grand less than 18.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's real conservative. I think we might think about, you know, based on these trends and maybe along it. Again, there's a lag effect. I think there's a lot of pent up. We've had 10-year bull market until the market just rolled over. And so people are, you know, home price appreciation has been extremely high percentage wise in Wenham in particular, despite, you know, the low transactions. And so you could argue that there's not a huge sample size, but people are definitely, you know, money's still free. So people are still doing these projects. And I agree with you, Jackie, like just anecdotally, everyone wants to do this, you know, but work, you know, improve their house in some way, shape or form, especially in a you know, town like Wenham with a bunch of cool old houses. Right. But I am hearing that a lot of contractors are just not anxious to get out there and work. So I think there's going to be a challenge for, in the grand scheme of things, with the number of projects that are ongoing, because I think, you know, people don't want to be in you know, homeowners' homes with them around, and homeowners don't want a bunch of subs coming into their house.
I think you put a pin on exactly where we'll see the downturn happening first. Are those projects where people are still in home that they can't do it themselves? You know, it's more than a homeowner can do on their own, but it's less than where they would have to move out for a couple of months or like have their house be vacant for a time or a new construction. So it's that I think that middle of the road that you've identified that we'll see a lot of our downturn.
Right.
First.
Right. Yeah. And of course, then you've got a new home, obviously, where people where it can continue, perhaps slowed slightly because you have less overlap with various contractors, but people can work in empty houses, and that's the gold mine right now for contractors who want to keep doing this stuff, no doubt. But this is great analysis via the memo and the data, the numbers to back it up. So thanks for putting this all together. Did you want to transition to the fire ban stuff?
Yes, that would be great. So as Chris had mentioned to me that you had some questions about the fire truck, in particular, the bond question. So I did want to follow up on that. So as we were preparing the warrant book and the capital budget options, we had a couple of, more than a couple, 5 ballot questions. One of the last ones being the debt exclusion for a fire truck ban. So there's a couple of things I want to touch upon with that. So the first thing is that both town council and our bond council reviewed the ballot question. So bond council drafted the initial version, and town council also reviewed it. So in terms of the legality of that question, we did have both of those sources reviewing it. I think one of the questions that I also heard, I believe from one of the selectmen, was why there wasn't a specified number in the language that was going on the ballot. And that was at the advice of town council because of the nature of bans versus bonds. So with the fire truck, we are talking about a debt exclusion question. So that puts that out of the levy. So we have the debt be excluded. But with a ban rather than a bond, the interest rate can change with a ban every single year. So with a bond, you're able to put in that number really early on because you know your principal and your interest when you're going out to get the debt, when you're getting the debt authorized by town meeting. With the bans that have recently been allowed and are recommended for any projects under $1 million, the bans change their interest rate every year. So for example, we currently are in year 2, soon to be year 3 of the Iron Rail ban. And that's a ban that we fund from the Iron Rail Revolving Fund, and every year we pay it down a little bit. But every year our payment has been different and will continue to be different because the bans have their interest rate change every year. So we actually, with a bond, we go out and get the town meeting authorization. We go out to bond once, and then we just pay debt payments every single year. And sometimes we'll go back and refinance to lower the payment, but that's, it's kind of done at the beginning and you just keep paying it. With a ban, we actually reissue the ban every single year. There's a reissuance. And so the interest rate does change, and changes interest rates do. And so it's a smaller project, but more of a flexible payment. And so I did attach with the memo, you can see the options for the fire truck, as well as our current Iron Rail ban repayment schedule, and the repayment schedule for the Longfellow Road project that was authorized by town meeting a few years ago that we're going out for issuance on this May. And you can see that the interest payments do change from year to year, just due to the nature of the ban. And so town council advises not to put a specific number in the ballot question, because then if the interest rate changes in a way that could proportionally affect us badly or not as badly, we wouldn't have that exact dollar amount to pay. So we would let the public know what the principal is that we're going for the fire truck. In that case, it's $475,000, but we don't name that in the ballot question because we want to have the legal authority to pay both the fire truck payment, the principal, as well as the interest that changes from year to year. So it's a little complicated. It's definitely different from bonds, which we're used to doing, but because of the market and how these different municipal finance functions work, we can't go out for bonds for things that are under $1 million. And because Longfellow Road is the type of project it is, where it's taxable versus the Iron Rail Revolving Fund, which is another category because it's our tenant property. And then we have our fire truck, which is our normal municipal acquisition of a vehicle. Those 3 projects could not be bundled into one bond because their dollar amount could get close to $1 million together. But we were advised by Hilltop Securities, who we work with on these projects, that because of the different nature, we could not bundle them, even if we wanted to. So that's a bit of a summary. It's a little bit complicated, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Thanks for that, Jackie. I didn't realize that the Longfellow Road you said it was taxable, so that's not exempt. Is that the case?
Correct.
So, and we are issuing debt for it?
Correct. We are issuing $242,000 for that project that was authorized at town meeting in 2018.
Right. I recall the authorization.
But the residents are paying a portion of that, correct?
Correct. So so the municipality, we issued, we have $60,000 that we have as town funds for our share of the project, which includes, because we have some land up on Longfellow that is accessible from the road, as well as just the municipal share that the selectmen were willing to to work with the residents on. So there's $60,000 of town funds for the project. And then the remainder of the project is the $242,000 that we're going to go into debt for. And Steve Ozahowski, our assessor, has been working with Sherry and Chris and I and Anthony to finalize. We have, I think, 7 residents left out of the neighborhood of about 30 residents that need to sign on for what betterment repayment schedule they're going to want, whether it's they want to pay the whole thing now, 10 years or 20 years of payments. And so Steve will be setting those up in our assessing software throughout the month of May, so that come Q1 for fiscal 21, those residents will see their first betterment payment for the debt, as well as their property tax bill due on August 1st.
And how much, what's the sum total of the betterments again for that?
242,000.
Okay, the amount we're issuing debt for.
That's what we're, yes, correct.
Okay, thanks. I can't really, I know the decision has long since been made and approved by, authorized at town meeting by residents to do so. I just don't want to opine too much on it based on how I'm not in a position to discuss issuance of debt by the town. But if anyone else, but I appreciate the update on the article, and that makes sense as to why it didn't have the dollar amount. And that's good for everyone to keep in mind, because we're likely to get the question. Fire trucks aren't free. There's no price tag on it, I guess, if you have to ask. Right.
And if somebody had a coupon and hasn't brought it forward by now, we're just.
That's right. That's right.
What we can do.
That's right. Free 99. Any other questions on that for Jackie?
My only concern, just to repeat, I think what I said the other day, was that if by chance we have the ballot questions before the town meeting, it puts the town meeting members at a disadvantage of not understanding and not having the opportunity to discuss this whole process, and hopefully that won't happen.
Any updates on town meeting is still tentatively rescheduled, correct? Is that the case? That nothing's been finalized?
Yep.
And don't we have to have the ballot before?
Election has to be done by June 30th.
Oh, okay. So we could still provide town meeting before the ballot. That's the intent, right?
Yeah.
Ideally.
Yeah.
So where does it stand with like finalizing the date? Are we waiting for kind of like some guidance on the state side? Is it with the BOS? Like what are the thoughts on that?
Well, we're still waiting for seeing what happens with lifting the orders, and
Right.
it's still very much a fluid situation, and we just don't know if it's going to be, realistically, I would expect this to continue through the month of May, and at some point, June, start easing up on restrictions. What that is and what, we have no idea. And it might be the point where we may not be able to have gatherings over 25 people. So then we couldn't have a town meeting. So it's very much uncertain right now. And once we, if we choose to start the clock by voting on that date, then you get into a whole nother situation where right now everything falls in the Board of Selectmen's hands with that section of law. Once we post the warrant, now it goes in the moderator's hands. And we have a kind of an interim moderator, and then you have to physically go there that day and extend it. It's easier and cleaner right now by not posting the warrant till we have an idea.
Yeah, I mean, I can appreciate that there's no way of knowing in another month how things will be different to the extent they are with our ability to meet. Are towns entertaining virtual town meetings? Is that doable?
It's not allowed by
Yeah.
law right now, but
Right.
We are looking at, Joe and I have discussed, the football field in the event that we can't successfully execute social distancing at the Buca. So
Right.
I think that the selectmen next week, it's going to be on the agenda that to look at the warrant articles and Probably kick all of the non-budgetary items off to the fall. So this way we can just concentrate on the budget right now, especially if we don't have there's still going to be a lot of people that are going to be afraid to go out, even if we have town meetings. So, by doing that, we just concentrate on our biggest issue right now is just a budget. So it looks like we'll have a special town meeting in the fall.
So July and August would be a 1/12 budget process.
Not necessarily. If we were able to have town meeting in June, wherever that might be, and whatever means that is available to us, we still could process a budget.
I misunderstood that. You said we were going to take the financial articles out of the process possibly?
Just deal with the financial articles, Jim. Just the budgetary articles. Those are the ones that I think that the selectmen will look to concentrate on, and everything else, kick it out to a special town meeting in the fall.
Oh, do the financial articles?
Yes, do.
Oh, and not delay those?
No.
I thought you were, I misunderstood. Okay.
No, unless somehow it's to our advantage, somehow financially, to have a 1/12 budget, but.
Okay.
Those are the two options though, right? Either get approval on an FY21 budget as presented thus far or amended before then, June 30th. If not, then you're 1/12, right?
Right.
Beginning July, month by month?
Month by month.
Yep, okay. Okay, great. So just on the kind of carryover from last week, Chris, you sent some cash flow analysis. You're on mute.
If I had $1 for every time we said you're on mute during a Zoom meeting, I think I could solve our budget problems.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Before we get in that, I just want to touch base. You had asked about the Gordon College reimbursement last week. I followed up with Jeff Baxter over in the fire, and he said they've the last couple of years their calls have been going down. They used to bill semi-annually, and they've gone to now just billing once on June 1st. They gather all their information and send one bill on June 1st. So that's why we haven't received any revenue yet this year. He did say that the runs are way down this year, and he's estimating only about 25,000 in revenue from them this year.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then, oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, that makes sense that runs would be way down. And if I recall, the line item, Chris, was reimbursement and not expenses incurred, right?
Yes.
So it's just kind of the one side of it. So that makes sense that it was semi-annual now to annual. You said June 1st. Is that when the bill?
June 1st, Jeff told me, is when they send out their bill to them.
Okay.
And then on just a quick follow-up on the motor vehicle you asked, that commitment 2 of the motor vehicle excise was mailed out last Friday. That question was asked last week.
Right. Okay. Do you want to walk us through the FY20 cash flow data that you sent around?
Yeah, let me pull it up.
I can share it if you want.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
Yeah, I've got it in front of me. Let me just share it real quick. Oh, host is disabled participant screen sharing. So whoever's hosting can share or enable it either way, whatever.
Yeah, Alex, sorry, we have that enabled so that we do not get Zoom bombed during a live public meeting.
Smart move.
All right, here we go. So, a quick rundown of this from the revenues, the real estate. Usually, we're at about 99% collected. So going with the 95% collected at this point, I feel that's a safe bet to at least get 95 at this point, talking with Sherry, our treasurer collector, and how the revenue's been coming in. We feel that's a pretty safe number. with the motor vehicle 20 estimated remaining, we're at 612,000 collected this year in revenue, and just based on last year, we got 780,000 approximately. So with the 100,000 estimate and that commitment too that just went out was for approximately 80,000. I feel it's very reasonable and conservative estimate for this 100,000 here. We got 3 remaining state aid payments that we're expecting to come in at almost 78,000, and then our remaining assessments from Hamilton for our joint library, joint inspectional services, and Pleasant Pond. So just those right here are just our major revenue sources for the rest of the year. This isn't total. This is just our major ones right now. I'll be getting more in depth when close coming up. But I just wanted to show this the major revenue sources here. So that's the estimate of 3,664,000. And then moving on to the expenses, the salary, the 990,000 is based on 6 remaining payrolls, 3 stipend ones, which is a little bit more, and then 3 of the regular payrolls. The monthly expenses, those are just our monthly payments like utilities, water, electric, IT services that we pay on a monthly basis. There's no extra supplies or anything with the spending freeze we have implemented. So this is just what we need to pay for, with our contracts and everything monthly. And then our 2 remaining school payments of 1,784,000, which would be about just a little bit over 3.2 million, which would give us a positive 426,136 at the end of the year right now is my estimate.
Do we
Is
have a
that
sense?
free cash, Chris?
This, I mean, if all works out, this would, well, see, this is not all, if some came up and there were some extra expenses, but in this case, if this is what happened, yes, that would be closing out to free cash, because that would be it. Well, and you got to take in the rest of the year, it could be higher, because the free cash is going to be based on our total revenue to our revenue budget. The more revenue we collected over our revenue expected budget, and then how much under we do come under our expense budget. So yes, that would be at least minimum 426 in this scenario. It could be a little bit more depending on, or if there's a lot of COVID expenses pop up, we could have a little bit more. So say, but right now, that's correct with this
Thank you.
worksheet.
Thank you.
I have a, sorry, Mike.
Yes.
No, I think Mike had a question.
No, go ahead.
Okay, I just had a quick informal question. So for the payroll, are we assuming that police and fire are getting more overtime or less overtime with the with COVID?
Not affected.
Or,
Yeah, that's not.
okay.
And so, yeah, a lot of them, like a lot of them, we're just doing our, their base, our base hours and base pay. Obviously there will be some overtime for, the police, and depending on calls, fire could be more, but, this
But
really.
that's the regular
Yeah.
overtime. Nothing COVID related that we're seeing. I actually had a conversation with the police chief today. Actually, calls are a little bit down and from their end.
Okay.
Fire is just kind of steady.
Cool, thank you.
What we may have had though, Dave, is because you have somebody call firefighters out of work when they do respond to the bell, that we have a little bit more coming than normal, because normally they would be all working, but where some are not working, they're available during the day. So not a huge spike, but a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying thanks, Mike. Thank you.
Anthony, you had briefed about $100,000 worth of savings for FY20. I think you briefed that yesterday or last week. Is that embedded within the 400K, or is that additive to the 400K?
No, Anthony, his savings wouldn't be in here. This is just based on actuals of what's going forward. So that would be that other stuff I was talking about that could happen, that more savings on top of that 426, because if we'd be saving that extra from the budget expense line.
Good. Thank you.
Hey, Chris, just a question or two. So thanks for putting this together. Are these all in, meaning there are three very broad categories on each of the revenue and expense side, which I think makes sense for this cut. Are there other revenue sources? I assume no.
No, there will be other revenue sources, like there's no permitting in here. There's no,
okay.
Licenses and fees right now. Those are, in the scheme of things, going to be smaller and, smaller amounts right now collected. So I didn't want to get too, I just wanted to these are like our four major sources right here. And there are a few other ones, but I didn't want to get into too much depth right now. I want to get a little bit more collected later in the year. Then I'll be throwing all the different revenue sources in there.
Yep. Okay. No, that's good. And so, so on the revenue side, I assume the Hamilton assessments are largely the library, right?
Yes.
Okay. So
that is
I think you said joint inspectional too. So that would be permitting, right? Or no?
Yes, but that wouldn't go into the revenue Jackie was talking about in her previous spreadsheet. Our assessment, the inspectional assessment revenue, we keep in a separate line item from the town of Hamilton than our actual permits we're getting for work in Wenham.
Okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
The assessments is to the third and fourth quarter library assessment, and then the fourth quarter of Pleasant Pond and inspectional services.
If we were revenue and expense neutral, if our budgeted expenditures and revenue were spot on for FY20 to date, this 426 would be our free cash, essentially, to Mike's earlier point.
Correct. In that scenario, that would be correct.
When you said there are three regular and three regular payroll cycles is biweekly?
Yes, it's biweekly. So I just actually processed one of the stipends in today, and a warrant this week. So it's just not, this spreadsheet was done before I processed those. So we will be down to 5 after, currently we're on 5 remaining.
And general fund monthly expenses at 500,000. What's the largest component of that? It can't be utilities, water, or electric.
No, it is health insurance.
That's what
I think. Okay. Biggest one.
Yeah. Yep.
All the benefits, health insurance, dental, IMED. The health insurance is the biggest expense.
Mm-hmm.
And then trash. Those are the two biggest.
So from a
hold on, I have another spreadsheet. Let me see if I can pull it up. That shows all the expenses that I calculated into that 500,000.
So we have in remaining real estate revenue, our largest source. We expect 3.175 million. 95% of which is the 3.016 million.
Yes.
And that's an additional, hold on one second, sorry.
Yeah.
That 5% accounts for 158, they call it 160,000 ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
And so 585,000 would fall to free cash if this were all, you know, certain, which it isn't. Obviously, there are a lot of unknowns as to how it's going to play out. What's in our normal revenue collection is 98, 99, something like that?
Yeah, right around there.
Okay. All right. I mean, this is good high level, I guess.
Yeah, for just for this early, I didn't want, you know, I just wanted to get a high level out there, just like I said, very high level right now. And then as we get later in the year, it'll get more, I can get more in depth because we'll have more actuals. It's just still a little bit early to do a lot of projections. So I didn't want to go too crazy with that right now.
Yeah, especially where whatever the bank was with the lockbox fell behind on processing.
Yes.
Because that's a big chunk of it. That's probably on the order of $100 grand worth, right? Of motor vehicle excise that was not yet accounted for.
So so here's where I came up with that 500,000 number. Just went through the number of payments. So as you can see, the biggest one is the Harvard Pilgrim. There was 3 remaining. Average about 66 a month for 198,000. The
Okay.
seller is the trash. That's another you know, another big one. The utilities, the gas and electric, around 27 and 36,000. And then TUS is a retiree's insurance. So with 3 payments left. So this is where that number came up to 499, 250. I rounded up to the 500,000.
Okay, thanks. One more quick question, and I'll
Yes.
let others chime in. On trash, how frequently do we get bills from Casella based on tonnage? Is the contract stipulate? Is it monthly that we get a bill?
Yes, we pay them monthly. Yes.
Have we? So is it the end of? I guess it doesn't really matter because we're at the end of April, beginning of May. I would think that this past month would have shown an increase. Have we seen that play out yet, or do we not have the bill yet for April?
No, April I've not got. I get three left from Casella, so we'll probably be getting that probably next week. They'll send it after the 30th for the full months, so we should be getting it next week.
Okay, thanks. And maybe not. I mean, I assume people are, you know, with everyone being home nonstop, they're generating more trash. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's not a correct assumption.
I know I am.
Yeah, I'm eating more. I know that. All right. So I don't have any other questions on this. If others on FinCom do, please jump in. Okay. All right. 1 or 2 quick updates. I had a conversation with David Wenger, chair of Hamilton FinCom, to connect with where they're at, just in terms of their process, obviously, which had more or less wrapped up, but to the extent they're revisiting things for FY20 or 21. Sounds like in general, they're still waiting on select board to kind of reconsider some FY21 changes. We talked a little bit about the library. It doesn't seem as though Hamilton is currently contemplating any changes to funding of services which have been directly impacted and forced to close. And just to use the library as the example that we've talked about a couple of times, I think any suggestion that we should, I think, would need to be evaluated, you know, really objectively in terms of, you know, what degree of, you know, material service impact has been thus far with regard to, for example, personnel. If you know, if they're still doing their jobs, then you know, perhaps there's no reason to consider cuts in funding. If otherwise, like I said, it would just require a specific review of the facts associated.
Jump in on that.
Sure.
I had a meeting today with Joe from Hamilton, Joe D.
Yep.
And Kim. We did have a lengthy conversation about options that are available, without getting into too much details because we're still waiting for some information, but we are talking and may have some talking points for Tuesday night for the selectmen and maybe Hamilton on Monday. And quite possibly a joint meeting the following week.
You're saying a joint meeting in a couple of weeks. Is that with select boards, with
Select
FinCom,
boards,
TBD?
select boards.
Okay.
We're just making sure that we have a meaningful agenda. So maybe we'll have some more information on town meeting. Maybe we'll have some information on recommended cuts going forward for joint services. All of that's still being looked at.
Okay. All right. So we can attend virtually if not participate. So that'd be something I think that FinCom would be interested in.
Sure.
In that meeting. So keep us posted if you would, please.
Will do.
Other than that, we're also looking at a communication to the schools, encouraging them to revisit their FY21 budget, in short. So more to come on that. I think we want to be in sync with our neighbors as the other member community in requesting, as I might add, as Carrie has done, although is not here to speak to it, but she has, as a follow-up to our discussion last week, reached out to, along with Anthony, perhaps via Anthony, thank you for doing that, forward along a request to get more information from the schools as to what their analysis of any changes in the FY20 current fiscal year and also their thoughts on FY21. I suspect they don't have a lot to share yet on the FY21 piece, but we want to make sure that they know that this is of utmost importance as we're doing the same on the town side. And also, given the override situation has yet to change officially, but I think from recent conversations, it seems like the resident taxpayer support for them is likely diminished, however much, and so all the more reason to see if we can reduce the school override amount attributable to the school override. One last comment on that. Chris, if you wouldn't mind for next week, or maybe via email before then, just grab those numbers, the total town expense increase, total school increase that result in that roughly 1/3, 2/3 split. Those are, I think, good, just kind of back pocket numbers to have to back up the attribution or allocation of total override to town override and school override, understanding that they, at least on the town side, you know, if not, the schools might change. Does that make sense, those numbers? You're on mute. I get the dollar that time, Anthony.
So you're saying you want the spreadsheets you put together and how we came up with the split between the school and the town override amounts?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
If you could just blast out those numbers. Yep. I know they're in the huge roll up, and forgive me for being lazy and not going digging for them, but I also run the risk of not getting the most up-to-date roll up since small things change over time.
I'll get those and send them, email them off to you.
Okay,
everyone.
Thanks. Does everyone know what I'm referring to there?
Yep.
Okay, great. Terrific. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? Jack, thanks for joining us. Anything you'd like to add, Jack, Harriet? Any comments, questions? No, you're good? Okay.
Alex?
Hey, Alex, I just followed up on that email that we haven't gotten a response back, so I CC'd you on it, on Carrie's request.
Thanks, Anthony. Yeah. I did ask her, we were just in touch earlier because she was letting me know she couldn't make it this evening, and she mentioned it, so she forwarded along your email, and so I can at least see what was in there. I took a quick scan of it, but it's in a meeting, so I haven't.
Yeah, I
perused it yet,
CC'd
but
you
I'll
on
look
the
carefully.
I CC'd you on the second request, just saying we haven't heard from you. It's almost a week, and
Oh, great. Okay.
I added Michelle Bailey to it too.
Got it. Thanks. And I sent out just for just so people have it. Let me jump into the sent and real quickly just rattle off those dates that I said I would provide to everybody. Last week. Apologies for looking for this now. I'll just go to, it's from Michelle Bailey on behalf of the school committee for the legislative stuff. Okay, May 5th and May 6th. Okay, so just for everyone, just for kind of public notice, so to speak, school committee will be getting a full overview of the rest of FY20 at their meeting on May 6th. So that's a week from today. She writes that since much of the rest of the year's finances are dependent on if and when schools reopen, you know, obviously May 6th will have some more clarity on the issues, I suppose. May 5th, the day before, which is next Tuesday, legislative roundtable at 4 p.m. Senator Tarr, Representative Hill, and school committee, and both select board. So I guess Jack, you're in on that too then. And at which they're looking for updates on the state budget and recent legislation. So, and then she goes on to talk about a potential loss in state revenue next year, which obviously is no surprise. So a week from today, May 6th, for those who can make it virtually, school committee is getting an overview of the rest of FY20. So thanks to the communication that went out, they know without a doubt that we're interested in potential impact of COVID on FY20 and also FY21. I think we'll be generating another kind of joint memo on behalf of both FinComs at a minimum to the schools and SE and administration shortly, within a couple of days.
A clarification question, Alex.
Yep.
She says dependent on if and when the schools reopen by May 6th. Is she implying that, my understanding is that the governor's order has us closed until September. Can a local community override that?
No, she wrote that, no, exactly, they can't, but she wrote this on the 18th. So that was, I think, just before the
Yeah, it was.
the state came out and said you're done till the fall. Yeah. So good point, Jim. That said, I would still expect they're going to meet, and I still expect they're going to talk about budget matters germane to the upcoming year.
Is that at the regular school committee time at 7 o'clock?
Doesn't say, and I assume yes, but they may well have changed their schedule as we have.
Okay.
So I'll check and I'll blast out the timing via email so everyone has it.
Thank you. And we'll still have our 5:30 meeting on May 6th.
Yes, sir. Yep, we're through May. Is that correct, Chris, Jackie?
Correct.
Yep. If, of course, if we don't, I think these updates have been good so far. If there's not enough and we need to scrap one, we can. Otherwise, we'll just keep going. And I think we're covering a fair bit in an hour to an hour and a half-ish each time. So hopefully with the efficiency of not having to travel, however far that may be, it's helpful. That's all I have. Are there any other?
I have a question on FY21.
Sure.
Anthony and Chris gave a pretty good brief yesterday on potential reductions or savings. I think they added up to what, about 500? Is that correct? Did I get
It was
that right?
5 and change.
Right. So is that additive to a carryover from FY20? So if I had 400 free cash plus another 500 of savings in FY21, or am I double counting?
No, double counting.
Double
So
counting. Okay.
yeah, those are no. Then double counting.
Oh, I was dreaming. Okay.
I don't know if Chris, if you can forward them take that section out of the packet and send it off to FinCom.
Yeah.
That'd be fine. It's just a menu too. What I like to do is always, if we have to make $361,000 or $400,000 in reductions, I'd like to selectmen to have a menu of expenses where they could determine what they want to go without and what they don't.
Okay.
So that's why it just doesn't stop at the exact number. I think that they deserve to make those decisions.
Thank you.
So I'll email that off to you as well with the town splits for the override.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Anthony. Okay, any other comments, questions? We
Just
did
an
have,
Just an observation, Alex.
of course, Jim, shoot.
That 4 billion state revenue loss. I had heard about a week ago, Anthony, maybe you can correct me on this, that they're projecting 2 billion for this coming fiscal year and 2 billion for 22. Did I misunderstand that at some point? Those were early projections, not 4 billion for this coming year, but over the course of 2 years.
Yeah, so what I've heard is 2 billion for this year.
2.
Yeah, and not getting much information from the state yet. The focus really is just on the public health, although, you know, when we sit in these different calls that I join, you know, we're always asking the question, you know, what will state aid look like next year? And we're just not getting answers right now.
Yeah. Okay. It was just an observation I had when I saw the 4 billion for next year.
Yeah, I saw, my understanding was 2 million this year. 2 billion this year.
Yeah. Still a
Huge
lot of money.
Yeah, huge impact. And I think, I mean, how it could, you know, I think those are pretty rough estimates when the engine that generates all revenue for the state, or much of it, has ground to a halt. Who knows how it'll really play out. But yeah, I think in large part that depends on the reentry strategy, right?
Right. Yep.
The timing and you know, speed with which money starts to flow again. All of which is totally unknown, as far as I know.
Yep. Agreed.
I had minutes for approval in the agenda, or we have, as always. I believe there are 4 remaining, and I realized that I hadn't sent them all out. We did a bunch last week. I think the one I sent was April 22nd. We have the 8th, 16th, 22nd, and I'm sorry, 3. We'll have 4 in total after this evening. But I sent the 22nd. The 8th and 16th, I'll forward along. Catherine and Chris and I have them. If people are in a position to vote on the 22nd, I'd like to do that now. Carrie indicated she had no substantive comments. I see a thumbs up from Mr. Maltano. So Mike, Jim, are you guys okay with having
I'm
reviewed
fine
those?
with them. I read them.
Okay.
They look fine to me.
Thanks.
Good. I'm good.
Great. So I move that FinCom adopt the meeting minutes of the April 22nd meeting as provided.
I second.
Great. Thanks, David. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Unanimous.
Roll call,
And we'll, Catherine, sorry.
roll call, please.
Roll
Roll
call,
call,
please. Yep. For
Catch
Mike, Carrie.
Catherine.
Yep. Do we, Catherine, do I name them? Do we name each other? Aye, Alex.
Hi, Jim.
Aye, Mike.
Aye, Dave.
Thank you. Okay,
So it
great.
has to be verbal. We can't, just a question is for Anthony. Oh, we just can't, got it. Next.
No, it's gonna be roll call.
Just curious.
Roll call.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yay or nay,
Aye,
along
state
with
your name.
who you are. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yep.
Closing comments, Jim? Did you
Nope.
have something?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay.
Jim, we miss seeing you though. It's not the same without seeing a camera.
I agree.
Yep. You're like that missing Brady Bunch I'm looking for, and I look in my corner and it's nobody there.
Show us some love, Jim. I mean, look I'm wearing a Belichick right here. I've got like a torn
Love
collar
it.
sweatshirt. Oh, well. Next time, maybe. We can always hope.
I think Jim's on a beach, has a margarita in his hand right now or something.
I missed something here. What are you guys talking about?
So we can't see you.
Why not?
Well, that's for you
I don't know.
your camera could, it's not no, because it says Jim Purdy. So if you lower left of your screen, it should say start video next to your microphone.
Yeah,
And if you so,
there you go.
there you go.
Oh,
It is.
there you go.
Ah,
That
Look, guys,
completes the
you got to
family.
give me a little room here on this technology stuff.
Doing great.
I'm sorry, I thought that was on.
No worries. And then
Feel
now you know how
much
to turn
better
off
now.
too. Same thing. Cool.
Jim, I thought you were on vacation. You just didn't want the rest of us to get jealous.
Yeah, right. On my backyard, yeah.
All right then. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi,
Yep.
David.
Hi, Mike.
Thank you, everyone.
Hi,
Have a good
Jim.
evening.
Stay safe.
You too.
Thank you. Have a good night.